Dream Children, a Reverie is an essay which is written by Charles Lamb. It is about a dream world which belongs to the famous works of Charles Lamb and was published in London magazines around 1823. Here Charles Lamb refers to himself as with a pseudonym Elia. You'll come across one name Elia here. So Charles Lamb, he uses a pseudonym called Elia, and he has written down this essay as a personal account of his life, which is removed from any moral lessons. The essay is one of the essays of Elia. There's a book by the name Essays of Elia, and it is part of that essay, and it expresses the feelings of loss and regret by the author Charles Lamb. It is based on the description of a place, the relationships, and the feelings that have been part of the author's past. So in the essay, Charles Lamb begins his essay, Dream Children, a Reverie. Before that, let's look at the meaning of reverie. So reverie is also more or less kind of like dream, like the meaning of dream. So the meaning of reverie here is a state of being pleasantly lost in one's thoughts or a daydream. So take it as a daydream, reverie. So here Charles Lamb begins his essay, Dream Children, a Reverie, by describing to his young children, Alice and John. So Charles Lamb begins his essay by describing to his two children, Alice and John, the tales of his childhood when he used to live with his great-grandmother, Mrs. Phil. So in a nostalgic tone, Lamb narrates to the children the humorous details of his time spent in his grandmother's house, the love between the two brothers, Charles and John, their frequent wanderings and mischiefs in the grand house, and their memories of the orchid trees and the fish pond. So he starts with children love to listen to stories about their elders when they were children, to stretch their imagination to the conception of a traditionary great uncle or grandame whom they never saw. It was in this spirit that my little ones crept about me the other evening to hear about their great grandmother Phil, who lived in a great house in Norfolk, 100 times bigger than that in which they and Papa lived, which had been the scene, so at least it was generally believed in that part of the country, of the tragic incidents which they had lately become familiar with from the ballad of the children in the wood. Just like other children do, Charles Lamb children also wanted to hear the story about their parents' childhood stories. One day, he was telling them about their great-grandmother, Mrs. Phil, who happened to live in a great house in Norfolk. The house she lived was 100 times bigger than the house they lived in presently. The children had also heard from the ballad of the children in the wood. If we look at the children in the wood, the ballad, children in the wood, a ballad is the story. If we look at the meaning of the word ballad, a ballad is a story in the form of a song. So there is this a ballad, Children in the Wood. So a folk tale set in Wayland Wood in Norfolk, according to which two children, a brother and a sister, are placed in the custody of their children after the death of their parents. The uncle decides to kill them so that he could inherit their wealth. He pays two men to take the children to the woods and kill them. The two men, however, instead of killing the children, leave them alone in the woods. The children eventually die, and their ghost haunt the Wayland Wood. So this is the ballet titled Children in the Wood. So the Children in the Wood was about the tragic incidents that had supposedly taken place at that house. The tragic story of the children and their cruel uncle had been carved out, had been written out in wood upon a chimney piece. However, a rich man replaced the wooden one with a marble one, and the story was lost. Here, Charles Lamb mentions that Alice displayed her displeasure when she heard that. Here, if we look at the second paragraph, last line, Alice put out one of her dear mother's looks, too tender to be called upbraiding. Upbraiding is to forcefully or angrily tell someone they should not have done a particular thing and criticize them for having done it. Then I went on to say how religious and how good their great grandmother Phil was, how beloved and respected by everybody, though she was not indeed the mistress of this great house, but had only the charge of it committed to her by the owner, who preferred living in a newer and more fashionable mansion, which he had purchased somewhere in the adjoining county. So Lamb tells the children that Grandmother Phil had been given the charge of the house since the owner liked to live in a more fashionable mansion. He tells that she was religious and a very good lady, and she was also respected by everyone around her. She took care of the house very diligently, very carefully. After her, the old ornaments of the house were stripped and set up in the owner's house after she died. So after she died, the owner took all the ornaments, stripped down everything, and carried away to the owner's other house where they were set up. And it did not look good. It was really awkward looking, as if someone were to carry away the old tombs from the abbey and stick them up in the Lady C. Tawdry's Guild drawing room. She was such a good and religious woman that huge number of people attended her funeral, that she knew, and also she knew all the psaltery by heart. I mean, if we look at the Bible, the book of Psalms, she knew everything by heart. And also a great part of the Testament also suggests that she was a good and religious woman. So as Charles Lamb said this, Alice spread out her hands. Then I told what a tall, upright, graceful person their great-grandmother Phil once was, and how in her youth she was esteemed the best dancer. Here Alice's little right foot played an involuntary movement, reeled upon my looking grave. It desisted. The best dancer, I was saying. She also used to be considered the best dancer, till a disease called cancer forced her to stoop. She could not carry on because of the cancer. However, although physically she was down, her spirit still remained upright, still remained intact, strong. Lamb mentions that she slept in a big chamber of the great house on her own, although there were the children haunting the house, the two children from the Children in the Wood. During those days, Lamb himself would sleep with the maid, with the servants, because he was afraid. He mentions that he was far less religious, but he never noticed the ghost. Here his son John was trying to look courageous at this moment. As we go on, Lamb also mentions that she was very good to her grandchildren. Mrs. Phil was very good to her grandchildren. When he would visit the great house in the holidays, he loved looking upon the statues of 12 Caesars. Lamb also mentions various things that used to attract him while being at the mansion, while being at the house. He would often spend time among various things there, and even more sweet flavors of peaches, the fruits, nectarines, oranges, and such like common baits of children. Here both children saw the influence of his description by ignoring the bunch of grapes they had otherwise wanted to have. So Charles Lamb mentions about various fruits available, she was he was not really interested to have all those fruits. And as he said that, his two children listening to him stopped themselves from taking this bunch of grapes, which otherwise they had wanted to have it. Lamb tells the children that their uncle. So we are now being introduced to their uncle John L. His name is John L. So John L was liked particularly by grandmother Mrs. Phil from among all her grandchildren. So John L, the uncle of his two children and the brother of Charles Lamb, John L, was the favorite of Mrs. Phil. He was more handsome and spirited than the rest. So why did Mrs. Phil happen to love John L more than her other grandchildren? Let's look at that. He was more handsome and spirited than the rest. He was so spirited that when the rest of them would spend at the mansion, he would go for a long ride with his horse for long distance and would even join hunters. He will go for a long ride riding his horse, and he will also team up with the hunters. Lamb mentions how he had missed their uncle when he died. So unfortunately, John L died. Although he did not show it that much, he missed the uncle's kindness as well as his crossness. Lamb also mentions the uncle's lameness repeatedly, which shows that he had been very concerned for him. The children felt uncomfortable with the description of the uncle, and they urged their father to tell about their pretty dead mother. So here they don't have their mother, and when their father was describing about their uncle, they did not like it because of what happened to their uncle. So they urged their father to change the topic and talk about their dead mother. Then Lamb told about how he courted their mother, the fair Alice W. So here, do not get confused with Alice. So the children of Charles Lamb is John and Alice. And remember the mother's name is Alice W. Do not forget that. So Alice W here, W stands for Winterton. If we look at the story more, you'll come to know that Winterton is actually it stands for W, Alice Winterton. Then Lamb told that he courted their mother, the fair Alice, for 7 years. He also tried to clarify to the children how he faced so many problems because of her shyness and her denial. She was not ready to accept Charles Lamb, and he had to go after her for 7 years. He did not give up. At this point, he noticed the strong similarity between the appearance of his wife and that of Alice. He feels as if his wife was communicating with him through Alice. Finally, he woke up and found himself in his armchair where he had fallen asleep. It states that James Elia was no more there, and everything that has been mentioned in the essay so far was being described by Elia. So it was just a dream. He had talked about it so long, but now it is just a dream. If we look at the essay, all the characters are real. They're actual, real, except the children, Alice and John. So from the title, we can figure out that it's a dream and a reverie, that is a daydream, nothing more than that. Dream children, a daydream. You can say like that. Dream children, a reverie. Or dream children, a daydream for your better understanding. Alice and John are children of James Elia. So James Elia, here Charles Lamb. So they asked their father, James Elia, to tell them about their grandmother, about their great grandmother, Mrs. Phil. So Mrs. Phil, the whole story is based on life of Charles Lamb. He was never able to get married and childless. He died. He is also, if we look at the essay, he's also regretting and remembering moments like about his brother, about grandmother, his childhood. So whole of this essay is full of this sad tone of the life of Charles Lamb. If we look at the essay again, the response of children makes the essay even more dramatic, and it explains the effect of the essay on their mind psychologically. On the other hand, their actions make their characteristic features even clearer. For instance, Alice seemed to feel discomfort when the grandmother's ability to learn things by heart was mentioned. This shows that she was a typical child who wouldn't like the mention of qualities of others that she found lacking in herself. So, when Charles Lamb mentioned about Mrs. Phil, who knows all the book of Psalms by heart, Alice felt this sense of discomfort. So, here we see this a typical child who doesn't like the mention of qualities of others which she cannot do it herself. When Lamb told them that he preferred to see things at mansion rather than eating fruits, here John put the grapes back. This shows his innocence as well as his ability to control his sense. So all these actions on the part of children also shows that the children were feeling constantly influenced by their father's description. If we look at the end, the way it's mentioned that all the description throughout the essay was based on just a dream. The essay even makes it more psychological than it is. The relationship of the narrator with the grandmother and his brother have been very clearly described. This description has served to clarify his characteristic features, develop the theme of family relationships as well as the theme of loss, and to make the essay dramatic.